Watching the X-Men made me think about social injustice. Hi, I'm Darren Randolph. Welcome to the Coolest Show, a deep dive where we get to tackle topics so we can get a better understanding of the world that we live in. Now, if you're watching this on podcast or YouTube or wherever you physically watch this, you'll see I got a hoodie on. I'm comfortable. I was watching a TV show. I was having a nice time. And then I immediately had to pause because the TV show started talking about social injustice. The TV show was X-Men 97, a cartoon on Disney Plus, and it brought up a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, and it got my brains turning. It said, the famous quote, "Riots are a language of the unheard." Now, this quote was interesting because I never would have thought a social justice issue would be tackled in such a palatable way. I mean, it's coming from a superhero TV show. People parade around in tights, they're flying, you see people shooting beams out their eyes. You got a guy who's a Wolverine who got adamantium/metal claws coming out of his fist, regularly saying "bub" before he slashes people up. You have a person controlling weather. You have a blue creature shape-shifting into different things. You have another blue creature teleporting or transporting to different locations. You see this and you hear this on just the surface level, you would think there's absolutely no way that this can tackle such a big issue in our society like social injustice and marginalized people. Oh boy, you would be wrong, because that's exactly what the show does. Let's take a deep dive into it to gain a better understanding. So for those who don't understand what X-Men is, I'm going to give a brief history of it. X-Men is a comic book, also a TV show and movie of this group of people who have a social or have a genetic mutation in their body. This genetic mutation allows them to have superpowers or grants them to have superpowers. Through this genetic mutation, they start to get prejudged and are drastically scrutinized because of this. Oftentimes, people begin to chastise them and give them the term mutants. In other words, they are the marginalized group of society based off of something they cannot control, based off a genetic mutation in their body. The people who are usually doing the judging are people that we're going to call normies. These are the normal people, the people without genetic mutation. Now, the show continues to go on, and the mutants break up into two groups between social freedom and cohabitation, and then social freedom through vengeance and self-defense. We will break down these two as well as the marginalized versus the dominant group, but this was just a general background of that understanding. When you look at mutants versus normies or mutants versus non-mutants, it's a perfect representation of a marginalized group versus the dominant group that is usually oppressing them. See, the marginalized group is represented by the mutants, and that's because they are chastised and hated on for something they cannot control. Oftentimes that is the same within our society. People are hated on by the culture in which they are brought up in, the color of their skin, how much they initially have their bank account, or other subcultures that can separate them from the systematic norm. The systematic norm within the TV show are the non-mutants, the normies. They overpopulate the mutants, which gives them superiority just by domination, just by the amount of people they have. And this is, again, oftentimes reflected in our society. Society often does this thing where we categorize people, and whoever has the most amount of people is the dominant, therefore the regular culture. So if you were in a group of people and they all had on red shoes and you had on blue shoes, it's easier to chastise you because you break the norm. You do not fit in the group that you are in. You do not fit in the popular or dominant selection. So they will throw you to the side. Other words, marginalize you. Throughout the show, the dominant, the normies society often tries to break them down, break down the mutants through dimming their powers, turning their powers off, or just hating them to the point where they don't want to use their powers or enlist them as military or weaponizes them. Again, direct correlation, direct parallel to our life. We look at how African Americans were often weaponized or often treated less than to their white American counterparts, all because them being a subcategory of a racial culture, because they were not the true or dominant culture or race in the eyes of many white Americans during that time. They were marginalized and put into a box less than. In actuality, they're all just humans. So in actuality, mutants and non-mutants are all still human beings. Just one may be different than the other because of a certain mutation, certain genetic difference. So the genetic difference in our skin color allows people to categorize us, me being African American, in that same category, the same category as they would with mutants. So there's the symbolism between mutants and between normies. But beyond that, you get to see the mutant on mutant crime. See, I think I like this one the most because you can really see the comparisons and see the similarities. You have Professor X, which is leading a more peaceful resolution between mutants and normies. His idea is to bridge the gap and have there be cohabitation between both of them with a peaceful resolution. Then you have on the other side of this Magneto. Magneto is more of a radical thinker. He thinks self-defense for the people of his kind. He wants to avenge the people of his kind. And he thinks cohabitation will be assimilation and lessening or dampening the powers in which we were given. Now, the creator of this, or the editor of this that took over in 1975, Chris Claremont, he says he had a clear vision for how Professor X and Magneto was going to be. He started to shape them based off of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. These were loosely transitions. These were not photocopies of them, but he did take some of the thoughts and ideas from each of them and bleed them into his character. Like this quote from Professor X in one of the comic book issues. He says, "The X-Men are scarcely children anymore. They have each proved themselves 100 times in deadly combat. It's time that they are looked at as individuals, not products in the assembly line." Now, if you were to take away the X-Men and take away the superhero aspect of this, it's very similar to a Dr. Martin Luther King quote. The quote that says, "I have a dream that 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Both of them have the ideas of people being treated as individuals, not being categorized just because they are a part of one subculture. Now, on the other hand, you have Magneto. Like I said, Magneto is more of a radical thinker, is often compared to Malcolm X in the self-defense nature of their people. They both take on a by any means necessary in order to accomplish the goal of which they set out, the goal of which to advocate for their people. This oftentimes has both of them, Malcolm X during his time on Earth and Magneto in the show, look as the antagonists because they are, again, by any means necessary, wanting to advocate for their people. This highlights the subculture on subculture violence that is prevalent through many cultures within society. The most prevalent one, or the most prevalent to me, because I see it almost on a day-to-day, is African American versus African American. While we are being culturally marginalized, we are also fighting ourselves and hindering ourselves. We will put up a wall against one subculture of African American and another subculture of African American instead of unifying each other to grow and heal and deal with the idea of social marginalization that is still out there. But because we are in constant conflict with each other, it makes it harder for us to come to a resolution in order to handle the next conflict above. For mutants, it was harder for them to handle the conflict of normies attacking them, non-mutants attacking them, because they are constantly at war and battle with each other. And that's just something I just think is extremely interesting. The idea of interracial and intercultural conflict between mutants and how that represents real life, how that represents the issues that we have going on, and how we often put ourselves in conflict within one another when in all actuality we all should be united. Not just subculture with subculture, but culture with culture, because at the end of the day, we all share one brain. And that's the point that X-Men is trying to get across. And it teaches us to to love one another, and it tries to emphasize that, but it doesn't do it in a pushy way. It doesn't try to shove it down our throat. It's actually in an extremely palatable way. Disguising topics allow it to be more palatable, allows us to consume information with a better understanding. Because sometimes, if we're being honest, we don't want to be forced to information. We want to be tricked to know something. We want to be tricked to learning and growing. But we want to do it in a way that is entertaining for us. Like a TV show should be entertaining. It shouldn't always be something where we're just sitting and learning. So finding the right balance in between that is something that's very crucial and very needed in society. And X-Men does a phenomenal job at this. Beneath the surface of the superheroes and the superheroes parading around in spandex and flying across the city and all that, it's a group fighting for justice between all people and refuses to quit until the situation is resolved and healed. Who knew that such a real and honest conversation could be had through superheroes and supervillains? I never would have guessed that, but I think it is such a beautiful thing. It reminds me of a Louise Nevelson, I apologize if I'm butchering the last name, quote. It says, "Art is everywhere, except it has to pass through a creative mind." Having a creative mind and seeing that this show is more than just superheroes and supervillains is crucial, because once you have a creative mind, then you get to see the social injustice that's going on in the show and the ways that they are working to resolve that conflict. That's something that we can apply to our lives. And it's coming from a superhero show. I can never stress that enough, the importance of creating palatable things for us to learn. So as we peel back the layers, we can gain a better understanding. I thought that was fitting too. The Coolest show is all about gaining a better understanding. And they did a great job of helping me understand social injustice through a palatable format. If you want to read more about this subject, I did come out with a Substack, and the Substack just breaks it down in another format to help gain, again, better understanding. So if you would like to do that, the Substack is there. It's under the Coolest Show, Darwin Randolph, and it would be a beautiful, quick little read for you to check out. But that's all that I got for you guys today. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you go check out X-Men 2. It's a great show, and you're really going to enjoy it. And I will catch you guys on the next one. All right, I'm out. Peace.